All right. So let's talk about SQL injection. This command injection I showed you
Yeah.
with ping form and Metasploit and image magic. There you just get to type bash commands, and that's easy, but that's not the most common situation. Far more common is SQL injection. So
Are
this
you
one,
gonna do manual SQL injection or are you gonna do it like through Metasploit?
manual.
Good,
Yeah, yeah.
good.
So here we've got a page like an administrator would get. And here, let me just make this big so that everybody can see it and so it looks good on the video. All right. So here I reset the server, by the way, because people can mess it up, of course. So in SQL, you never would let a customer have access to a page like this, but your administrator would. So you can execute commands. So if I do select show databases, it will show me that I have a database called information schema and a database called widgets. Now, the way SQL works is you can create your own databases that contain your customers and employees' data and stuff, and that's what this widgets is, but it will automatically create a database used to keep track of the internal structure. And that always has the same name for a type of SQL language. And this is the open source one, MySQL, and that uses information underscore schema.
Does
So
that come up just from typing show databases?
yes, if you
Okay,
can, but not into like a name field, you have to have the ability to execute a query, which
a
normally
query.
only an administrator would.
Exactly.
So you would never let a customer at this, but your administrator has access to that kind of field. So
Okay.
now your SQL stores data in the form of databases, and each database has tables. So you can see the databases and you can see the tables. And if you do that, it shows you the tables in widgets. The only table in widgets is employees. So that's that's the company data. Now you can also just select constants. You can select just a number. You do not need to select data that comes from the database. You can just do that, and then the answer is 1.
1 equals 1.
Yep, and you can also select words, and you can concatenate words together. And most important to us, you can do substrings of strings. We're going to need this later. So here I have the string peanut, and I carve out 2 characters starting at the second character. So I get the E and the A. So you can create a part of a string. Okay, now I found out that there was a table called employees and that the default database was widgets because I didn't specify the database and it showed me widgets. So I can select all the data from the employees table with select star. And now it shows me names and social security numbers for the people in my database. So that's why, of course, you wouldn't let anybody but the administrator have this kind of power. Now you can select individual fields, and you can also select fields with a limitation on them. So if I do this, I get the name and the ID from the employees table, and I get all the names and all the IDs. But if I want just the first one, I can limit it to where ID equals 1. And this is what happens if you go to like a chat room or Facebook or something, or Gmail, and you log in and it shows you just your mail. It gets the records just for you and doesn't show you anybody else's stuff.
Okay.
So now you can concatenate things and you can insert data into the table and so on. But right now, let's take a look at information schema. If we do this, I'm going to get a list of all the tables in the information schema tables.
What about from a non-administrative like access point?
If you have a non-administrative, well, if you have the ability to execute arbitrary select commands, then you can do a lot of damage. If you're the administrator, you can delete the database and everything. Even if you're not the administrator, you can often read things. A normal user should never be able to type in a select command at all.
Exactly.
All they should be able to give you is data, like a username, and then you process it, and all the code was written by the developer. And that's where we're going to see this is the problem, and it really is fundamentally the same as the ping command injection. So if I do this, I get all the automatically created tables, and there's tons of them. These are all the tables in a database. So it's a ridiculous amount of them used to automatically administer the system. And you can also look at all the column names, which are all the columns of data in all the tables. And again, there's a ton of them. By default, it uses capital letters for these in general, and by tradition, the ones you make for your company use lowercase letters so you can tell them apart. But it is kind of nuts. So this is just so you get some idea how SQL works. And
okay.
And so then you find a couple things here now. Be aware there's sections here. Section 1 uses that query. If you go to section 2, you have to use the one in that section. These are different databases for each section. So now we're going to do SQL injection. So this is what you would actually let a user see. They don't get to type in select something. They just put in a name.
Okay, so this is from the user's perspective.
Exactly. So the user just puts in something like Bill Gates, and it says, okay, I found Bill Gates. And if it was a real page, you'd show me like Bill Gates's email or profile picture or something. And if I put in somebody that is not there, like Sam, then it says, didn't find anybody. But that's not an error yet. The problem is, if I put in a name with an apostrophe in it, like Tip O'Neill, then I get this. This is the kiss of death. What this means is, look at what happened here. It executed this query here, select name from employees where name equals Tip O'Neill. This is what the developer wrote.
It lets you know it's vulnerable. Am I correct?
Yes, yes. This is the data I put in. And what happened is this apostrophe that the developer put there was paired with this apostrophe that the customer put there. And this was now treated as a command, Neil. And Neil is not a valid command, so it crashed. But the problem is I've got command injection. I'm able to insert a command when I'm really just the user. This should never be possible. This is just like putting a semicolon and a command after that IP address in the ping form. The only problem is I cannot put in commands like Linux commands like date and ls. I can only put in SQL commands. So you have to understand how to write SQL commands to exploit this. That's the only hard part. So this is just a denial of service attack. I've now created an error by breaking the syntax, but what I want is to escalate this to command injection. So if I do this, this is one common way. I put one apostrophe and then I put 1 equals 1. So what happens now is it says name equals Sam or 1 equals 1, and the pound is a comment mark, so it ignores that last apostrophe. So now it doesn't crash because this is still valid.
So it's a Boolean statement, basically.
Yes. Now this is a Boolean comparison, and the second term is always true. So this combination is always true. So it shows me all the names. And that's why an injection like that will often work. If you put it in a username and password field, you'll often authenticate as the first user in the database, which is usually the administrator. So this lets me dump extra data that I wasn't supposed to see. And by the way, if you don't want to use this comment mark, which you often don't because different databases use different comment marks, and I find it frustrating in TTFs to try all the different kinds of comment marks, you can do it without a comment mark this way. You put in that, and now I put in, this is the name I put in. And SQL misinterpreted it as Sam or A equals A. So I put in 4 apostrophes, and the extra 2 that the developer put there matched to create a valid statement that, again, is always true. It's sort of cleaner. Anyway, now the real next step is to get the ability to inject select commands. So I do that this way with the union.
Select certain databases, correct?
What's that?
To select certain databases or certain, yeah.
To select anything you want. So remember, I said that I should never be allowed to do this.
Exactly.
But because of the vulnerability, I can do that. I can write a select command to do anything I want by using the union operator. So if I do that, it does one select command, selects where name equals Sam, and there are 0 results. Then it adds a table of select 1, and it finds the 1. So I am now able to write my own select command. I've now basically given myself the administrator power. Now I'm not the root on the server, but I now have the ability to execute arbitrary select commands in a database. So now, so now you can put in select commands here to get these databases. You can now get things out of here. Now, one of the automated tools, the main professional tool is SQL Map, and you can try it on here, figure out how to use SQL Map. There's some tutorials and stuff. That's one possible way to attack it. And,
yes, but OSCP doesn't even allow you to use SQL Map. That's the only crap. That's the only crap part.
Yeah, I know it's better to learn not to do it without SQL Map. So let's go down to the next section. It's better for you. So then there's blind SQL. This is a good clean fun. Now this SQL injection we did here, you can see the results. Blind SQL is where there is a SQL injection vulnerability, but you don't get to see the result. So I reset the server. So here we got a name box. If I put in Bill Gates, it finds Bill Gates. Okay, but what's not obvious here is this data did not come from the database. And we can see that if you put in, say, X. Let's put in X, I say, okay. Now that creates no result because no name is equal to X. But if I put in one of these injections from before, then I get name equals X or A equals A. So this is always true. And it replies user found, but it just echoed my query. It didn't dump any data from the database. It just repeated what I put in.
So the Boolean statements are really the key.
Yes, but I know the Boolean statement succeeded because otherwise it would have crashed.
Okay, exactly.
The fact that it found something means that this is a valid statement. And therefore,
true.
I cannot see any data that comes from a database, but I can ask a yes or no question. And so this combination is true. If I change this to B, now it's false. So I can put a yes or no question here, and if I get no result, it's false. And if I get a result, it's true. So now we play 20 questions. You can pump data out. So for example, I want to know the name of the database. So I can take this injection, and it'll tell me if the length of the database equals 1. And it doesn't, so I get no results. So now I can try, say, greater than 1. And that would be true. And it is true.
Okay, so you can use statements like that with greater than, less than, or equal.
You can. Now I can try greater than 5, and it's true. So we can narrow it down. And then if you go back to before we had substrings and stuff, you can actually pump out the name. You can get the names. Yeah.
So basically, are you saying trial and error until you find exactly what you look for?
You could call it trial and error, but it's actually systematic search. If you're smart, you could, like if you wanted to find the first letter, you could try A, B, C, D, E, and E, or you could, let's do this one. Let's get the first letter of the database. Let's find the substring, which was here. There's a substring. Okay. So let's go down here. Okay. So I don't want the length. I want the substring of the database. And I'm going to go from 1 and 1 character, and I'm going to see if it equals A. There, that's my question. And it does not equal A because I got no results. So I can try B. And it does not equal B, but this is for the birds. I can do greater than B. And it's just going to look alphabetically. And it is greater than B. So I see you could do brute force by trying everything, but it's a lot better to cut it in half every time. Greater than L, greater than J, you know, that sort of thing. You can zero it down with, and so anyway, you can find a length of a name, and then you can try these. Here's where you're going to pump out names, and you can pump out passwords. So anyway, you can figure it out this way, and it doesn't really take too long if you're smart about it. And a tool like SQL Map will automatically do it. And so will other things, you know, like Nessus and stuff. But it's good to learn how to do it manually. Anyway, that's SQL injection, which is a good thing to practice. And then there is Windows command injection, which is here. This is the Windows command line, not PowerShell. So this is the good old Windows where you have dir for directories and all that jazz. So,
MS-DOS.
and it's the same kind of thing. Here I'm going to do a directory, and I can put in a dot, and it will tell me the contents of that directory, which is here. So I gave it dot, and it executed dir dot. So I can do dot and who am I, which is the Windows equivalent of ID.
Mm-hmm.
And now it'll tell me that I am a directory and I am the administrator. So that's pretty awesome, which is why this server is always tracking.
In Linux.
Yeah, it's like root in Linux. And so
Okay.
now I can upload a file and write to a file. So let's try that. I can put a name in a file here, and I'm going to call this ccc.htm. This is going to put hello into that file. Let's say hello from ccc into ccc.htm. And now I should be able to see it here. And it's going to be ccc, hello from ccc. So you can deface my server, you can write files on it, and in fact, you have administrative rights. So I have to restart this one and restore it from backup pretty often, as you would imagine.
So remote file inclusion, basically.
No, this is remote command injection. File inclusion, what I just did there, that was file upload. But yes, that by itself is remote file upload. If I read, that's right, that's like remote file inclusion. But anyway, and then there are some flags to find on this server. So anyway, there's a few more variations of command injection you should try out. And SQL injection is something, if you haven't done it, you should really play with it and learn how it works, because this is really big. Something like 10% of all the databases on the web are vulnerable. This is a perennial problem that never seems to go away. All right, I'm going to stop the recording and post this up.
Thank you, and I'm sorry for anybody that